Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. When you see number 48 ripping around the track with Jimmie Johnson behind the wheel, chances are he's headed for victory lane. A 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, Jimmie has already etched his name in the record books. And a word of warning, he's not done yet. This year, Jimmie is chasing an incredible 8th title, which would surpass the record he currently holds alongside racing legends Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. An avid competitor, you'll likely find Jimmie competing in triathlons, half marathons, and Ironmans in his free time, or playing his favorite role, dad, at home with his family. On today's show, Jimmie takes us behind the wheel to tell us the story of how a kid from California shook up the racing world. We talk about the keys to his sustained success, the team behind him, and how he built a competitive advantage through fitness. Hold on tight. Here's my conversation with Jimmie Johnson. You know, Jimmie, you have been able to win so consistently in a sport that in a lot of ways is really hard to dominate. Tell me a little bit about how you've done that. I mean, consistency and success and putting those things together is just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's really more than me. I think one aspect that isn't maybe noticed or recognized or the credit's given to how much of a team sport NASCAR really is. And when I look at the consistency over the 16 seasons I've had, and we've won 7 championships and, you know, all the winning years in a sense, and we've been able to win every year, it's more than me. I mean, I'm a piece of the puzzle, but we, as a group, have been able to deal with a lot of adversity, a lot of changing times, and you know, that core group of people and being connected and all pulling in the same direction, all that team stuff that, you know, we see the cliches written and quotes written and all that kind of stuff. It's all true. I mean, it really does make a difference.
You know, for those folks that are listening that don't know NASCAR as well, I mean, I get the team piece and I appreciate your answer. It's awesome. How is that team structured and what does that really look like?
For starters, I drive for Rick Hendrick and Hendrick Motorsports, and we have a 4-car operation. At our campus, we have around 600,000 square feet of facility to build anything and everything allowed by the rules in NASCAR. Within that, you break it down to my team, the 48 team. There's probably 100 people inside of the assembly shop that just work on my cars directly.
Wow.
The overall campus entails 650 people. So it's a big organization and a lot of hands and minds kind of touch and create what we do. But when you break it out to just our team and on a weekend, there's probably 15 people at track, most of which have engineering degrees. And then there's a kind of a nucleus of 5 engineers and myself that really work through what happens over the course of the weekend, our strategy in the race, the way the car feels and what I feel, and then I try to verbalize that to my group. They pour through the data and try to help identify what the problems might be, and that collaborative work together is really where the speed comes from. So, you know, that's one aspect of making the car go. Then you get on track and you need to race, and you have pit stops, and there's the pit crew and the over-the-wall element that also kind of jumps in and is responsible for the results.
Well, and you know, you have 3 teammates, right, at Hendricks, and they're all in their early 20s, right? So you're probably, I would imagine, the leader of that sort of band, right? So tell me a little bit about that and the teamwork from from the other driver's perspective.
Yeah, this is a new year for me. I do have 3 teammates in the 20s. One of them's 20, just turned 20. So,
jeez.
When Jeff Gordon retired from Hendrick Motorsports and from NASCAR, we were on the same team, same company, and I felt the transition really kind of happen then. And then Dale Earnhardt Jr. was my teammate for a long period of time, and he just stepped down. So there was some shared responsibility amongst Dale and myself, but now it really is on my shoulders. So I feel fortunate to have it, the slow kind of burn and getting into this role. And now I'm ready for it and very aware of my comments and actions and how it, will affect the whole team.
Sure, sure. Who's been the biggest influence on your career, would you say?
Gosh, it's hard to pick one, but when I go all the way back, it's really been my dad. Through the way, there's been some key people, a lot of names I could mention, but I guess one that most would recognize would be Jeff Gordon. In my Cup career, and certainly the last by 18 or 19 years of my life, he's been a huge role, influence, mentor, been a big part of that.
Well, and tell me, I read this, right, about the story of how you and Jeff met.
Yeah, I mean, I was really needing some career advice. My situation was kind of up in the air, and I went to him, hopeful he could shed some light on decisions he had to make early in his career that kind of seemed similar to the situation I was in. I approach him, I engage. I'm shocked to find out he knows who I am. We have a later conversation, and I find out he absolutely knows who I am, and the company's considering hiring me for a new team that they're going to start. And this was in my first year really in touring NASCAR division of the Busch Series back then, the Saturday show that we have. And I didn't know that he knew who I was or any of this stuff. And here, come to find out, they want to start a team and put me in the car.
Wow,
so it was
right.
a total mind-blowing experience.
Oh, yeah, that's totally cool. So going back, right, you're a Southern California guy, right, that started off racing motocross and motorcycles, right?
Yep.
Sort of off-road. And then in 1997, you picked up and moved really your life to Charlotte. Tell me a little bit of that story, right, the hustle that went into getting you to where you are today.
Yeah, I was really fortunate to be spotted by Chevrolet. And like other sports, we have scouts, and that scouting's kind of evolved over the years. But in my generation, it really was manufacturer representatives that were at track or would hear of an up-and-coming driver. And if they were in the area of a local race, they'd go look and watch. And the manufacturers wanted to find these young drivers, put them under long-term contracts, and really kind of mold them into representing, that make and manufacturer vehicle. And I was fortunate enough to be spotted by the head of the Chevrolet race shop in a race I was competing in when I was 15. And that really led to it's the only vehicle I've ever raced, to be honest. So it started that relationship, and really they started guiding my career and helping me network, get in front of the right owners, in front of the right people. And that all started really kind of in, I guess, 94, 95. And then come 97, we were looking at my advancement within racing and moving into asphalt racing. I said, look, if you're serious about this, you need to move to Charlotte. So within a few weeks, I bought a ticket to Charlotte, and I moved here in April of 97. And it took a lot to happen from 97 until, I guess, 2000 when I got my first real NASCAR opportunity. But literally passed out business cards. First thing I did was had business cards made, and I would go to all the lunch spots where the teams would eat, pass out business cards, and try to just meet people.
That's
and
awesome.
Get going.
Sure, grinding it.
Any executive I met, I took their business card and would send them a letter, or put them on a fax list, which is even hard to even say now.
Right.
But I was racing, and I wanted them to see how I was competing in these other series. So, I just worked every angle I could to try to be in front of people and network.
How long were you sort of grinding it like that for, right? Networking. A lot of people that have seen the success that you've had today wouldn't, sort of look in the rearview mirror, if you will, right? To see what it took to get there. There was so much work to get there.
There really was. And all racers kind of live that grind because very few families can afford to do it on their own. And it takes corporate dollars, sponsorship dollars to make that work. So most racers at a very young age kind of come to grips with this process. And, my story is like many that have succeeded, and there are many, many more that haven't had the chance that I've had, but still can identify with it and live with this grind. But really, when I thought I could make a career out of racing, I was probably 18 or 19 up until 25, 26 when I got my start at Hendrick. My view in being recognized and trying to find that corporate dollar, it was just all about that particular grind. So that window of time. And then once I got my chance, trying to stay employed and trying to do the right things within the team, the grind shifted to a different area.
Well, and there's been a lot of talk, right, about a record-breaking 8th championship. And, as someone who's worked with athletes myself, I mean, tell me a little bit about how does that drive you, right? Sort of this record-breaking 8th championship, but how do you also sort of stay focused on what you do and how you do it and sort of get rid of that external noise too?
That external noise has been something I've never been caught up in. I know it's hard for many to understand this, and I had a really challenging kind of upbringing into racing, and prior to my time at Hendrick Motorsports, I wasn't this like standout superstar. I mean, I did well. I was spotted by the correct scouts, and I had people believing in me and helping me along, but I was very young. I was moving quickly through divisions. I wasn't driving the same vehicle year after year or the same tracks and around the same people. So I didn't shine. I did well, but there were a lot of tough lessons, and it wasn't about stats or winning or championships. I fell in love with the experience. I fell in love with racing and the people and the environment. So then once I was put in this very successful situation, my core values are kind of set in place.
Sure,
I would love to win more and win more championships and break records. I mean, that's the obvious, but it's not what, I lay awake at night thinking about. It's not what gets me up at 5 a.m. to start my day so I can get it all in. It's more the process and the racing that I'm in love with.
Wow. Well, and I know you have an incredible family and beautiful children, and I'm sure that keeps perspective as it does for all of us, which is awesome.
Without a doubt.
So, you've won a ton, right? But tell me a little bit about a time that you failed maybe and what you learned from it, how it made you better.
Obviously, daily there are little small things we can identify with, and then, that falls in the personal and professional buckets. And then, big picture and more professional related through my career, I can honestly say I have no regrets. And I hope that I can continue that through my professional career.
Sure.
And all those tough times have really been, growing moments. And it's hard to really dig deep and analyze yourself correctly when things are going great. Certainly enjoy those moments, and I've learned to appreciate them and enjoy them because there's far fewer of those than there are the other. But my biggest growth has come through tough times and through failure. And from losing an individual race, I always flash back to my rookie year. There's a big race called the Coca-Cola 600 that I dominated and had in the bag. And on the last pit stop with 30 miles to go in the race, I just made a small error on pit road, and I slipped through my pit stall, completely threw the pit stop off, came back out on the track in like 5th and didn't win that race, which would have been just a massive accomplishment in my rookie year. I can go back to 04 and 05 before I won my first championship. I came in both situations, came to the final race of the year with a real shot at winning the championship and made mistakes that didn't allow it to happen. There's lots of them along the way that really kind of help shape who you are.
Sure. What do you tell yourself after a quote unquote failure, right? So that you can recover fast, so that you can recover quickly and sort of refocus on the next race or the next thing that you got to execute against?
We all tell ourselves different things. And I think once you can sit with it yourself and just kind of have your own quiet time internally, you get to the bottom of it. And in the beginning, it's easy. And when you're around friends or your teammates, you're like, hey, it's just a bad day. It's just a bad year. You're quick to justify or to place blame or something, whatever it is. It's easy to have that quick response. But we all know once we sit with ourselves that you go to a different place mentally. And for me, I try to make sure I go to that place because I don't think I fully grasp it or learn it until I get there. So the small talk in my own head, I've been through it all, and we've all been through it all. And I just quickly try to get through that and get to the root of it.
And then tell yourself a new story so you can shift, right? I mean, to recover.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, you're one of the first drivers, I think, if not the first, right, that really realized that fitness was a huge component of your ability to be successful and win. And so I know you're an incredible triathlete and an unbelievably fit guy, right? How does competing as a triathlete change the way you do what you do on the track?
I've found that the mental space, in endurance fitness, running or the triathlons themselves, different amateur cycling races I've done, takes a very similar mindset to prepare, to compete. And I love being in that space mentally. to challenge myself that hard mentally, physically, to be committed to something. So I love that process. And it's something that I didn't expect to find through fitness. And as I have, it's been probably the most rewarding component to it. There are all the obvious things of nutrition, hydration, being in shape that come with that have been, very helpful. But that mental space and engagement, I live for that. And
Yeah.
it gives
Yeah.
me, gives me more purpose during the week and a more fulfilled day or week or month or year.
So am I hearing you say maybe that the sort of the byproduct from a health and fitness perspective is almost secondary to the mental component that it sort of unlocks in you as a driver?
You're 100% right. And it was discovered, a few years after being involved. And it's amazing how good you feel training in that space after a good day. And then also on tough days, or tough weeks, that outlet. And it's not my meditation. I do try to get some quiet time for myself. I think that's helpful, but it is a nice outlet to burn off steam and to kind of work through some issues. And honestly, I'll come back from a bike ride or a run and I'll have my brain so organized in how I need to attack the day, what I need to address, working through conversations I need to have. There's been far more of a mental benefit than I ever expected.
Sure. So kind of talking about mentality and the mindset, how do you prepare mentally for races, right? Whether they're triathlon races or obviously, on the track.
There's nothing better than feeling prepared. And we all have different levels that we're comfortable with, but I just, again, try to honestly look inside myself. And am I prepared? Am I there? And when that happens, it's amazing how much easier it is to sleep the night before, your perspective on the weekend, your approach, all that stuff. So granted, preparing for triathlon is way different than a car race, but you know at the end of the day in your heart if you're right, and I try to make sure I'm right.
How have you changed as a competitor over the years, would you say? I'm sure you've evolved in a lot of ways, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally, even probably relationally, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm trying so much harder now than I did when I was young. At times I wonder if I'm overthinking it. I don't know if that's just age or life and all the above, but I look back to when I won the 5 championships in a row and I wasn't training. My life, just due to circumstances was so much easier. I'm newly married. We're traveling. Fitness was not on the radar. Like just simple. And I guess there is something to be said about that and the way you're able to compete. But that's not my life now, and I've never worked so hard and tried so hard. But I do find a lot of reward in that, and it does bring peace to be prepared.
Mm-hmm. Preparation is key. And you have a wonderful wife and 2 beautiful daughters. I know that you are locked in on. Yeah, you're locked in as a dad, I can tell. And tell me a little bit about how you balance all of that, right? Because you, I know, go to have lunch with your daughter at school. I mean, you do some awesome things. Tell me about that.
Weekends are tough, and as my kids are getting older, I know it's challenging for me and the family. As the weekend activities pick up, and that's traditionally when families can be together and spend that time. So my family is traveling less. Mondays are a free day for me. Wednesdays are hit or miss. Thursday's usually a travel day and a free day. So I just try to tackle anything I can, from carpool to ballet recitals, lessons, horse lessons, whatever's on the docket. I just do anything I can during the week to be there and be a part of it. But what's been challenging in such a great way in trying to balance it all is my wife has been so supportive and been behind me through my entire career. But about 3 or 4 years ago, she, feel more fulfilled and chase her passion as well. And she opened up an art gallery here in Charlotte, which has put a lot more, it's changed our dynamic a lot. Mm-hmm. And she has her own responsibilities and work and for her small business. And I'm so proud of her to start it and to get it going and see it be so successful. But it's changed things and put a lot more on me and a lot more that I need to be concerned about when I am home. And that adjustment's been great. It's had me so much more involved and in tune. And the balance, not only my balance, but I guess my overall family balance, that is something that I'm trying to share with young drivers that I'm mentoring and working with. That it was all about me before, and sure, that was great. But, inside of Team Johnson, getting that balance and making sure that my wife has her outlet and her focus and her fulfillment, and along with my kids, that is way more important than being over here in my selfish little silo worried about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So you land from a race on at the end of a weekend, and your wife looks at you and says, honey, I got to go to the gallery this morning. I have a meeting and I need you to take the kids to school.
Totally. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's just turned into planning. I mean, we can dig into our shared calendar and we know where we're going to be virtually all year long. And the more forward thinking we do and the planning we do, the easier the whole thing moves along.
Sure. No, that's cool though that you prioritize obviously her needs, right, to ensure that there's an outlet for her. I that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've thought about it hard. It's if I didn't have, and she's always been a career-minded girl, and if I didn't have my outlet and fulfillment, I'd be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And when she started this, when she started the gallery, she was probably 6 or 7 months pregnant with our second.
Oh wow.
And she kept asking herself, "Am I crazy?"
Right.
I'm like, "We're all crazy, but if this is what you need inside, yes, let's go, let's do this."
Yeah, so cool.
I've been her biggest supporter, and it's just because I've thought about my own life. If I didn't have my outlet, man, I'd be a mess.
Sure. We all need it. How does what you do, right? How do you incorporate that into the way that you parent and love your girls and your family? Like, how does that show up? Because I'm sure there's moments that you have in your life that you learn from that then can translate and allow you to sort of teach your girls those things too.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, something I'm really happy about is our kids watching us fail as much as succeed and how we handle it. And we want our kids to see the best of everything and use that as an example. But I think identifying mistakes that we make, and I just went through something over breakfast this morning with my oldest. She had a rough weekend and had trouble controlling her emotions, and I had a bad race this weekend and shared with her that I had trouble controlling my emotions and that even adults make mistakes, and some best practices I'm trying to use and maybe she could look at and use. So that's been something that we've tried to identify with and help teach our kids skill sets that we're even dealing with, and share this as a family and a group. Like we all deal with this, I think that's just a good approach.
Sure. Well, and your humility clearly shines through, which is, I'm sure drives the connection that you have with your girls. So couple more questions, Jimmie. Put me behind the wheel for a minute, right? I mean, sort of switching to sort of the track. What's going on inside the car on a race day?
Yeah, so our space, within motorsports, there's a lot of technology, and NASCAR in general really wants to keep it about the people. So we have loads and loads of technology available, but it's just not allowed in the sport per the rules. So what that means at the end of the day, in a nutshell, is that the driver is the computer for the car. In an IndyCar and Formula One and really lots of other forms of motorsports, they have computers in the cars and vehicles that tell the engineers exactly what's going on. So in our sport, my most important thing to do is to sense what the car is doing and sense what is making me uncomfortable. And then from there, I have to communicate that to the team. We dive into the technology that's allowed, try to identify the problem, make changes to the car, and then go out and just repeat that cycle over and over. So that's how we build speed in the car. And then once you get into the event, start racing, you're managing those sensations that make you uncomfortable around 40 other cars, and the cars themselves throw off a huge wake of air. So the car by itself, you've been practicing all weekend long and developing these uncomfortable sensations, trying to make them better. And then you put yourself in this turbulent air, as we call it. Things usually get a lot worse. So trying to manage emotions, drive the car, keep it pointed straight, not crash, that whole element is just takes a lot mentally to control the vehicle, control your emotions, help lead the team, and stay on topic and try to drive the conversation in the right way to make the car better.
I can imagine that that's challenging, but I bet because you've been on all of these tracks, right, that your ability to mentor these young guys is huge.
It is, and the mentoring side is something that I knew was coming. I've had mentors in my life all the way through, and I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have them. And so in the back of my mind, I felt like there's a point in time coming for me to do that.
Sure.
I didn't think it would all show up really in 1 year, and I'd have 3 guys to look after me. I'm ready. But the young guys bring in a fresh set of eyes. And in anything, when you do it for so many years, sometimes the small details is where the magic is, and we just tend to overlook it as veterans. So I'm really trying to open my eyes and peel some layers back and not ignore some of the small details that I typically would. And then at the same time, when I see these guys dealing with issues, and I feel like off-track issues, in the car, they're very focused and very good at all of that. But there's just different challenges stepping into this Cup spotlight that I call it, and racing at the top level, that from a money standpoint, notoriety, the press, how to handle the press, how to handle tough times, the fans' opinion, living in a world of this digital footprint that we have, and how fans can tell you how much they like you, but more importantly, tell you how much they dislike you. How to manage all of that outside of the car is way, way challenging. And that's where I think I can help these guys the most.
Sure. Keep the noise out, for sure. Tell us about the Jimmie Johnson Foundation and how we can support it.
Yeah, thank you for the mention. And I guess first and foremost, to check out our website at jimmiejohnsonfoundation.org. We're very focused on public education. We've been focused on many different causes over the years. I guess we're probably around 14 or 15 years old with the foundation. So various projects with Habitat for Humanity, and grew up in California, and wildfire things that have happened there, and other natural disasters we've supported and been involved with. But public education's really been our focal point, and we focus on the areas where my wife and I grew up, so Southern California, Oklahoma, and then where we live here in North Carolina. And it's been extremely rewarding, and we know that we have made such a difference in those areas, and have various fundraisers through the year and projects. So if you have a chance to check out the website and learn more and potentially support us, that would be great.
So we end every podcast with a rapid fire. And so you're pretty clear, I can tell. And so tell me this. I'm going to just fire some questions. And I know you know how to do things fast, so this won't be hard. All right. So one word to describe you.
Of late, I would say a thinker.
A thinker?
Yeah.
All right. The app that you use the most?
Instagram.
One thing on your bucket list?
Kona, the World Championships for the full Ironman distance.
The Big Daddy, the big thing?
Big Daddy.
Dude, that's unbelievable, man. That's incredible. And also on your bucket list is to take your wife, fill in the blank. I'm just helping you here, Jimmie.
Around the world. Yeah, no, that's very true. That's what's so funny is of course, we're planners. So at some point, the Cup career will stop, and we're planning a year of travel around the world.
Wow,
so
cool.
That seems much more in reality than bucket list item. Like, it's coming.
Sure. One thing that you can't live without?
My family.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
The late blinker.
The late blinker. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
What's the best part of what you do?
I would say influencing kids.
Influencing young kids, whether they're drivers or not.
Yeah, what drivers or not. I mean, I see more that want to be drivers, and that are enamored by the sport. And I can so remember having that gleam in my eye, looking at my, heroes and watching racers, and really everything that I do and spend my free time on from a charitable space and at track is focused on kids. So I have a huge connection with the kids.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Maybe enjoy it a bit more. I've always been worried about the next day, and I think savoring some of those moments along the way.
Mm-hmm. How do you want to be remembered?
As a good person.
Nice. So the show is called Game Changers, right? So my last question is, who's a game changer in your life that's inspired you, and why? I'd
say my wife. She is rocking it these days. I mean, she's always rocked it, first and foremost. But what's so great is where she's at and what she's doing with her art space and her personal growth and development is inspiring me and helping me grow and evolve so much more as an adult and kind of outside of my comfort zone. And she's definitely my greatest inspiration right now.
That's cool. She makes you better. Jimmie, thank you for taking the time for this, and we're cheering for you for certainly this season.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.